Now let's continue to take a look at some key movers on Wall Street. For these movers, Diane King Hall, host of Morning Movers, is looking at Applied Materials. Now, this name is selling off after its earnings report.
Yeah, and it's really, this is all about the forecast here for Applied Materials. I mean, it's getting hit hard off the back of this. There was some commentary they made on their earnings call about just the lack of clarity around tariffs. So that was been one of the challenges in terms of the most recent quarter. In terms of what Applied Materials is reporting, they did beat expectations in their most recent quarter. Adjusted EPS came in at $2.48. Revenue was $7.3 billion. So both the top and bottom line beat. But that doesn't matter right now in terms of their forecast. They're guiding for revenue to come in between about a 6.7 to 7.3 billion. That is below what the street was expecting. Adjusted EPS, they're expecting that to come in between 211 to around 211. The street was looking for more than that, so it's a light forecast. They talked about a dynamic macroeconomic and policy environment with increased uncertainty and lower visibility, especially in China. This is something they said on the earnings call. They said customers in China are digesting prior purchases. Export license approvals are backed up. That's some of the language that was used. Lumpy, this is a term that came up. It's not the first time I've heard this earnings season, that lumpy phrase. So they say the demand pipeline is lumpy as customers face uncertainty over trade and tariff policies here. They do still see some long-term growth drivers. They did try to hype that up. They see some near-term softness, but the long-term growth drivers, they see that as AI and robotics. For AMAT. But again, this China pressure, they expect that to be weaker, not just for this current quarter, but several quarters that is expected to be under some pressure. And they think that tariff policies could significantly raise chip prices unless production shifts to the U.S. So they have this large backlog of pending export license applications to the U.S. government. So they highlighted that. That's a challenge for them. So again, the stock is under heavy pressure, and what it does in terms of its year-to-date performance, Nicole, is it really takes that down majorly, because before today they'd had some decent performance year-to-date, but again, this double-digit move down about just shy of 13%, significant haircut to their performance, and it now causes it to be an underperformer compared to the S&P 500 year-to-date.
Okay. And then when you think about this, I mean, this is a name that is bucking the trend here because it's been a lot of up arrows lately for a lot of these tech names. Yep. Let's get to Cisco, which has had a downgrade today. And so, look, as I said, it's not been all good news. Yesterday, we saw 7 of 11 sectors that actually had some down arrows. So we're going to expect some more volatility, but still breaking into record ground. Record today for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Record today for the S&P 500. Yeah. Let's take a look at Cisco. Some of your thoughts there.
Yeah. It's interesting, though, just to add to that point, Scott Bauer made this point that it really seems to be a Teflon market overall. When you look at the broader market, even though, again, we're seeing some pressure on AMAT, Cisco. I've got a couple of the laggards here today, but overall investors are just shaking off that worries about that hot inflation print. You had that stronger than expected retail sales data out today. But Cisco is getting hit right now, down a little bit more than 2% at the moment. HSBC is downgrading it to a hold from a buy. Their price target now is $69. That's down from 73. 73 was their previous price target here. They've essentially just moved to the sidelines on this one. The reason is they say that, although the networking business has been bouncing back, they just don't see much upside ahead from here. And although there's been AI strength, they're just worried about some other weak spots. Security sales was just single-digit growth, and they think overall growth in that segment was disappointing, so they trimmed their long-term forecast there. And then when you look across the numbers, they think that's, just essentially in line when we're thinking about Q4 revenue. And then EPS, they point out that's in line. So essentially the valuation looks full from the point of view of HSBC, and the stock has already been outpacing the broader market, outpacing the NASDAQ overall over the past year. So they think the strength is essentially baked in at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look, it really has had such strong momentum. I mean, they talk about AI revenue to double in fiscal 2026, according to UBS, but how much of it has been baked in? This went from $47 up to $72. An incredible run. And Cisco was really a leader. I mean, over the last decade or decades, we look at these names, and I know they've had some issues and faltered, but it's like they're back on top again, but how much is too much, right?
Yeah, from the point of view of this analyst, exactly, that, it's full enough already. They don't see much upside from here. Of course, you have, analysts with different takes, but this is the take from HSBC right now as it relates to Cisco, Nicole.
Right, and look, to your point, there's other analysts with some higher price targets as well. I mean, I saw, for example, $85 from Bank of America and a buy rating.
Yep,
so,
right.
It's we try and cover it all for you here. Last but not least, what about CRM, Salesforce? Where do we stand
So
there?
that one's been a difficult stock year to date, but you got one analyst becoming slightly more constructive, if you want to put it that way. This is DA Davidson on Salesforce. They're upgrading Salesforce to neutral from underperform. So they're moving, from essentially underweight on this one and, almost basically the equivalent of a sell rating. But now they're moving at least to the sidelines on this one. They think the slowdown in its core business and rising competition already priced in after the stock drop that we've seen so far this year for CRM. I mean, Salesforce has really been an underperformer year to date. I mean, the stock is down 28%, more than 28%, roughly 29% year to date if you include today's move. Today's move is obviously to the upside off the back of this analyst note, up more than 1%, up approaching a 2% gain on the day. So they needed this tailwind. They pointed out that shares have lagged the broader cloud software index. And sentiment has deteriorated essentially too much. Now, they do point out, I mean, this is, of course, with the caveats, there is competition in their core customer segments for Salesforce. This focus on the Agentforce AI platform, they're a little bit, kind of keeping perspective on that because they think the Gen AI adoption is being slowed by just limited cost visibility here. So that's one of the concerns here. Now, where they do also see some potential, there's some activist investor activity around Salesforce, Nicole.
Yeah, I've heard some conversations and some concerns pertaining to all the challenges facing Salesforce. It was a name that people loved. It moved into the Dow Jones Industrial Average, right? Didn't it? Or maybe not. I'm not really sure right now off the bat. But I will say it became an incredible performer. But I think also the fact that it's just not necessarily moving in this AI race, you know what I mean? So we think about that overall. So that's the big picture here for that kind of name,
Yeah.
And so I was just double checking to see if it's in Dow. I don't see it.
It is in the Dow. I mean, it did become a Dow component several years ago.
I don't
know if it still
is.
Come
out because I just did the 30. It's not there. But look, it was a key performer and key leadership. Too.
It was until it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, but the CEO too. Thank you, Diane.
All right,
always covering our top stories with all the fundamentals that we need to know. Diane King Hall, host of Morning Movers every morning. You can check her out there.